humanitarian aid into Gaza and ensures its safe and unhindered distribution to the population in need of such assistance in line with international humanitarian law. Mr. President, this is the product of weeks of consultations. The sole intent of this resolution is to ease suffering and contribute to the end of this abhorrent war. So, colleagues, let this resolution send a clear message. A message that the Security Council is not turning its back on starving civilians, on the hostages, and the demand for a ceasefire. Let it say that we support humanitarian workers and health personnel struggling against impossible odds. That when a war is live-streamed around the world, daily and in graphic details, we have the decency to act. That international law matters. That humanitarian principles matter. That the principles of humanity enshrined in the UN Charter guide us. Mr. President, we, the 10 elected members of the Security Council, call on all Council members to vote in favor of this resolution and to uphold this Council's responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Denmark for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, U.S. opposition to this resolution will come as no surprise. It fails to condemn Hamas or recognize Israel's right to defend itself, and it wrongly legitimizes the false narratives benefiting Hamas, which have sadly found currency in this Council. Council members ignored when the United States made clear that this resolution was unacceptable. The Council instead adopted for performative action designed to draw a veto that extends Hamas terrorists and those who fund them and support them and gives them a lifeline. Let's recall that Hamas started this brutal conflict on October 7th, 2023, when it perpetrated the worst massacre and kidnapping of Jews since the Holocaust. To the approval of its supporters who took to the streets on October 8th to praise what Hamas had done, Hamas promises to repeat October 7th. Despite everything, Hamas has no regrets. The lives of Gaza's civilians in harm's way are mere tools in the project to destroy Israel. Hamas continues to hold 48 hostages. Those who remain alive are captive in a living hell. It has done so for 713 days. We have seen the chilling videos and images of how Hamas has starved the hostages. In this Council, we have heard heart-rending testimony from freed hostages, how Hamas brutalized and sexually assaulted them during their captivity. Hamas is responsible for starting and continuing this war. Israel has accepted proposed terms that would end the war, but Hamas continues to reject them. This war could end today if Hamas freed the hostages and laid down its arms. This resolution has other serious defects beyond just failing to condemn Hamas. First, the United States has stressed since this conflict began that Israel has the right to defend itself. This resolution seeks an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire that would leave Hamas in a position to carry out future October 7th attacks, as it has threatened to do so many times. This resolution draws a dangerous false equivalence between Israel and Hamas. There can be no equating the two, full stop. The hostages in this resolution are a mere afterthought. The United States will never accept this. President Trump will never accept this. He has made clear all 48 hostages must be released now. This resolution also refuses to acknowledge and seeks to return to a failed system that has allowed Hamas to enrich and strengthen itself at the expense of civilians in need. This resolution wrongly references the IPC report with its flawed methodology, changed standards, and clear bias. Gaza has humanitarian needs because of Hamas, and because the international community turned a blind eye to the true use of the billions in aid that it provided. Israel takes clear risks by working every single day with the United States and regional partners to deliver aid to civilians, as we witnessed today. As Ambassador Huckabee said, initial reports show a terrorist arrived at Albany Crossing, driving an aid truck intended for Gaza, and murdered 2 Israeli soldiers. This heinous act betrays the trust in humanitarian efforts. We offer our condolences to the bereaved IDF families. This resolution fails to recognize the reality on the ground that there has been a meaningful increase in the flow of humanitarian aid. However, the UN's own data shows that approximately 85% of UN aid sent to Gaza since May 19th has been intercepted. We must ensure that this aid reaches the civilians who need it, rather than sustaining the Hamas terrorists. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the GHF, supports that goal, delivering over 167 million meals to date to those in need, rather than to Hamas. GHF works well, and it is untainted by the extreme failure of other organizations at the UN. The UN and the Council members should support the GHF and other mechanisms, including airdrops by Jordan, the UAE, and international partners facilitating deliveries of food and other supplies into Gaza. These mechanisms have delivered humanitarian assistance and other goods to those in need and denied Hamas the supply on which they have come to rely. So, the United States rejects this unacceptable resolution. It is beyond time that Hamas release every single hostage now and surrender immediately. The United States will continue to work with its partners to bring an end to this horrific conflict for the sake of the people of Gaza, who deserve a future free from Hamas, and the whole Middle East, which is ready to move into a new chapter of peace and prosperity. For these reasons, the United States of America will vote against the draft resolution and urges delegations to join us in voting against it.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/583 please raise their hand? Those against? There's no abstentions. The result of the voting is as follows: 14 votes in favor, 1 votes against, 0 abstentions. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make a statement after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. President. I begin my statement today in this 10,000th session of the Security Council with an apology. An apology to the people of Palestine, in particular in Gaza, to those whose eyes are turned to this Council today. We Algerians, we hear you, Palestinian sisters, Palestinian brothers. Forgive us. Forgive us, in particular in Gaza, where fire consumes, where rubble suffocates. Forgive us because this Council could not save your children. More than 18,000 of them have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because this Council could not protect your women. More than 12,000 of them have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because this Council could not shield your elderly. More than 4,000 of them have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because this Council could not defend your doctors, your nurses. More than 1,400 have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because we couldn't defend your journalists. More than 250 have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because we couldn't protect your aid workers. More than 500 of them have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because famine now spreads in Gaza, and this Council could not stop it, could not even act to denounce it, because this Council could not halt your forced displacement, and because aid, humanitarian aid, is turned into a weapon. And this Council, this very Council, could not break the siege of Gaza. Forgive us because the world speaks of rights, but deny them to you, Palestinians. Forgive us because our efforts, our sincere efforts, shattered against
الحقوق وينادي بالحقوق ويحرمكم أنتم منها أيها الفلسطينيون والفلسطينيين.
This Security Council was not of any help for you. Why? Because Israel is shielded, because it is immune not by international law, but by the bias of this international system. Israel kills every day and nothing happens. Israel starves a people and nothing happens. Israel bombs hospitals, schools, shelters, and nothing happens. Israel attacks a mediator and steps on diplomacy, and nothing happened. And with every act, unpunished, humanity itself is diminished. Colleagues, history will not weight our speeches. It will weigh our deeds. When Gaza burned, when children starved, when hospitals fell under the bomb, did we act? Yes. Yet know this. Today, 14 courageous members of this Security Council raise their voice. They have acted with conscience, echoing the calls of the international public opinion. Palestinian sisters, Palestinian brothers, be assured we will not give up. This is not the last time this Council is acting, and the international community must shoulder its duty. President, again, this Council failed. Another scar of the conscience of humanity. Shame. Shame on helplessness. Shame in the face of genocide. Genocide unfolding before open eyes. And to those who still deny, read the report. Read the report of the Independent Commission of Inquiry. Its words are clear, and I quote, "The Commission concludes that the State of Israel bears responsibility for the failure to prevent genocide, the commission of genocide, and the failure to punish genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip." This Council has already failed twice in preventing genocide. Today, it appears we are on the verge of witnessing a third failure. And at this moment, there can be no ambiguity. Each of us must choose either to act to stop the genocide or to be counted among those who were complicit. Mr. President, Palestine has never been surrendered to empires or invaders. Those who sought to subdue it are remembered only in shame. Palestine is for the Palestinian, and Algeria, as President Abdelmajid Tebboune has vowed, will never abandon them. Not until the establishment of Palestinian state with Al-Quds Sharif as its capital. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Algeria for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. On this 10,000th meeting of the Security Council, we are reminded of the immense responsibility and the solemn promise carried by this body. 10,000 times the world has looked into this chamber for a leadership, for conscience, and for a hope. Today, as we confront the tragedy unfolding in Gaza, that responsibility weighs heavier than ever. We have voted in favor of this draft resolution today because the situation in Gaza is urgent and needs an immediate attention. As we speak, the IDF military operation is expanding rapidly. An unprecedented famine, humanitarian catastrophe, and unfolding before our own eyes by the hour, compounding the suffering of civilians, mainly women and children. The world looks to this Council for action. Yet today, we have failed to adopt a resolution safeguarding the basic rights of Gaza's people. This is not just a procedural lapse, but a profound moral failing. The draft E10 resolution is grounded in the very language and the spirit of United Nations Charter, reaffirming the principles we have all pledged to uphold. It called for what should be a foundational minimum, namely an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, the release of all hostages, the unembedded flow of humanitarian aid, and respect for the international law by all parties. And yet, time and again, this Council has been blocked from action, invoking sometimes explicit, more often unspoken, of dangerous language and dangerous logic, that the suffering of some is more tolerable than the suffering of others, and that the lives of certain people matter less. It's a notion that has stained our history before, and it's one we must reject utterly. The moment we begin to measure the worth of human life by nationality, ethnicity, or circumstances, we lose the very foundation upon which this institution was built. The world is not watching. Every delay, every evocation signals to those under siege that their pain is negotiable, their rights conditional, their lives expendable. We cannot allow the logic of lesser lives to take root here in this United Nations Security Council. If we do, we not only fail the people of Gaza, we fail ourselves and the ideals of the founding values of United Nations and the overwhelming consensus of the international community. I thank all members who voted in favor of the resolution. Your support is a beacon of hope and reaffirmation of our shared commitment to peace and human dignity. To my colleagues in the E10, our work is far from over. We remain steadfast in our mission to end Palestinian suffering and advance just and lasting peace in the Middle East. There is no doubt that the foundation of peace in the Middle East is to address the root causes of this ongoing crisis and the underlies in the occupation itself, now in its 5th decade. Somalia reaffirms its steadfast support for the Palestinian people and their legitimate right for self-determination, and the return and establishment of independent, sovereign state with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital. Our delegation reiterates its call for an end to the occupation and an immediate permanent ceasefire, the release of all arbitrary detainees, and urgent resumption of credible and inclusive political process under the international auspices. We recognize and support the ongoing ceasefire efforts led by Qatar, Egypt, and United States, and look toward an upcoming two-state solution conference in the General Assembly next week with hope and determination. We urge all member states to approach that conference with a spirit of responsibility and genuine commitment to just and comprehensive peace in the Middle East. Somalia remains committed to the pursuit of just and lasting peace in accordance with the principles of United Nations Charter to bring to an end to the prolonged suffering of the occupied Palestinian territory and the wider region. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Somalia for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Mr. President, on the eve of the 80th General Assembly session and the high-level week, this 10,000th meeting, what a dark moment in this chamber. Pakistan voted in favor of the draft resolution alongside 13 members of the Council. We commend Denmark for its efforts in coordinating this joint E10 initiative. We align ourselves with the remarks of the permanent representative of Denmark. President, Pakistan profoundly regrets that this Council was unable to adopt a draft resolution tabled by the 10 elected members, a resolution solely aimed at addressing the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This was not a routine procedural matter. It was an opportunity to act in the face of unprecedented brutality and devastation and mass displacement in Gaza as the Israeli ground invasion intensifies. But let us be clear, it is not for lack of will or initiative. A clear majority of this Council has consistently demanded urgent action to stop the carnage in Gaza. And we have fulfilled our part of that responsibility. What prevented the Council from acting was the exercise of the veto. That carries a heavy responsibility. And that is where the apology must lie. In moments of such grave human suffering, preventing the Council from fulfilling its mandate risks being seen as enabling the continuation of that suffering. Those who have chosen this course must review their position. The people of Gaza are trapped between relentless bombardment and a suffocating blockade. Children are starving. Hospitals have collapsed. Families have no water, no medicine, no shelter. The occupation army has subjected Gaza City to its most punishing attacks in 2 years of war, sending thousands of residents fleeing under bombs and bullets amid fear that they might never return. This is not a tragedy unfolding in silence. It is happening before the eyes of the world, in plain sight, live on our screens, and the front pages of our newspapers. In that grim setting, today's failure sends a dangerous message that the lives of 2 million besieged Palestinians are deemed expendable and can be subordinated to political considerations. Every hour of obstruction deepens the wound and aggravates the suffering of the people of Gaza. Each failure compounds the cost also for the credibility of this Council. The human toll is staggering. More than 64,000 Palestinians have been killed. Famine has been officially declared in Gaza, with more than 400 deaths already caused by starvation. Infrastructure lies in ruins. Hospitals, schools, water and energy systems have been deliberately targeted and devastated. Aid workers, journalists, no one has been spared, and generations have been wiped out. Families endure unimaginable suffering, and yes, the safety of hostages is being compromised. Their cries may also be drowning out by the roars of the bombs, together with the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. And while preventing any moves by this Council, there have been assurances of action on ground, and those assurances have rung hollow, as the situation has only worsened, as we have seen. President, let me repeat, the majority of this Council has acted responsibly. We have fulfilled our duty under the Charter. The shortcomings lie not with the Council as a whole, but with the constraints imposed on it. Several grim realities underscore the urgency of action. First, famine. Already declared in Gaza City, famine threatens to spread across the Strip. Military escalation. Ignoring the calls for a ceasefire and having repeatedly undermined and sabotaged the negotiations, the Israeli onslaught on Gaza City is now claiming dozens of lives daily and could uproot 1 million people. And West Bank annexation plans. The expansion of illegal settlements in the West Bank, including the latest E1 plan, exposes the entrenched nature of the occupation and its true intentions, a death knell to the two-state solution. What a stark manifestation of settler colonialism in the 21st century. And we cannot remain oblivious of the fact that all of this is happening with an ongoing case in the ICJ and the unmistakably grave findings of the UN Commission of Inquiry regarding the acts of genocide in Gaza. Mr. President, Pakistan reaffirms its unwavering support for the Palestinian people in their just struggle for self-determination, dignity, and justice. We reiterate the call for an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire and an end to all military operations, an immediate, unconditional end to starvation and the inhuman blockade, with full unimpeded access through multiple entry and distribution points for humanitarian aid at scale throughout the Gaza Strip, and a just, lasting, and peaceful settlement of the Palestinian question, with the establishment of a sovereign, contiguous Palestinian state on pre-1967 borders, with Al-Quds Al-Sharif as its capital, in accordance with the relevant UN resolutions and international legitimacy. Pakistan stands resolutely with the majority of this Council, and indeed with the majority of the UN membership, reflecting the expectations of the wider international community. We stand on the side of humanity and with justice and with international law. The world is watching. The cries of children should pierce our hearts. The anguish of mothers should shake our conscience. Palestine looks to this Council, and we cannot turn away. Regardless of circumstances, we will not remain idle. We will continue to act, to speak, and to uphold our responsibilities. This is our duty. To the brave and resilient people of Palestine, waging a just struggle against occupation for their inalienable right to self-determination and freedom. And there is no other choice. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of France.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, la France remercie tout d'abord les 10 membres élus du Conseil de sécurité pour ce projet de résolution. La France a voté en faveur de ce texte. Il n'a pas été adopté malgré l'approbation de 14 des 15 membres de ce Conseil. Pourtant, nous faisons tous le même constat. Une tragédie absolue.
It's an absolute tragedy that's taking place in Gaza. This resolution project was constructed for humanitarian causes. It talked about 3 urgent issues. First of all, an immediate ceasefire, unconditional and permanent ceasefire. France condemns with the strongest of words the Israeli offensive on Gaza City. This offensive has caused the displacement of 300,000 Palestinians, and it has aggravated the humanitarian situation in Gaza. It has aggravated famine there, and this necessitates immediate action. France clearly rejects the forcible displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and calls on Israel to put an end to this act, and calls also for quickly resuming negotiations and for immediately implementing a ceasefire. The second reason why we support this resolution is that this resolution calls for the release of all hostages without delay, unconditional release of hostages, all hostages. Nothing justifies the holding of hostages. France has condemned the 7th of October attacks committed by Hamas that must be disarmed and removed from the governance of Gaza. And we also called for this on the 12th of September. And the third necessity is that Israel must abide by international resolutions and allow the free transfer of aid to the civilian population in Gaza suffering from famine. We want the UN aid workers to proceed with their work in Gaza. They are the ones who know how to distribute this aid, and they work independently, professionally, and they must be granted security to be able to reach the most vulnerable of people, especially the children. Mr. President, the UN Security Council also must push for a 2-state solution to the conflict. France, along with Saudi Arabia, has hosted a conference supporting the establishment of 2 states because this is the will of the majority of the members of the UN General Assembly, and this is the way towards peace and security for all in the region. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of France for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. The UK voted in favour of this resolution today to demand urgent action to address the appalling humanitarian situation in Gaza, to bring the hostages home and end the conflict which has raged for almost 2 years. Since Hamas atrocities of October 7, hostages have been held in unimaginable conditions in Gaza. This Council has been consistent in its demand for the release of the hostages in each of its 4 resolutions, and today's text underlined this demand again. The images of emaciated hostages held in brutal conditions speaks to the brutality of Hamas. They need to allow the ICRC to see the hostages and care for their needs. We reiterate our condemnation of Hamas and its terrorist ideology. Hamas must have no role in the future of Gaza. Last week, the UN General Assembly delivered a resounding message in support of this, with 142 countries voting to condemn Hamas attacks and to demand they disarm and end their rule in Gaza. President, we need a ceasefire more than ever. And yet Israel's reckless expansion of its military operation takes us further away from a deal which could bring the hostages home and end the suffering in Gaza. We are witnessing an entirely man-made famine in Gaza, and images of starving Palestinians killed while desperately seeking scraps of food for their families. And this week, Israel struck Gaza City Children's Hospital. Newborn babies in incubators and children on dialysis should not be under bombardment. We urge Israel's government to end the bloodshed, which has already cost the lives of 65,000 Palestinians, and to immediately lift its restrictions on the entry of aid and allow the UN and humanitarian agencies to save lives. President, the UK thanks the E10 for drafting and consulting on today's resolution. We regret the Council was unable to reach consensus on today's resolution, but we remain committed to the vision of this text. We will continue to do all we can to end this conflict, bring the hostages home, and work with our partners on a pathway to peace, to achieve a secure Israel alongside an independent Palestinian state. I thank you.
I thank the representative of United Kingdom for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Russian Federation.
Господин председатель, выражаем признательность непостоянным членам Совета за проявленную инициативу и настойчивость в продвижении проекта резолюции Совета Безопасности с фокусом на гуманитарной ситуации в секторе Газа. Российская Федерация поддержала данный документ, который содержит ключевые элементы для скорейшего регулирования. Немедленное и безусловное прекращение огня, освобождение всех удерживаемых Хамас заложников, снятие жесткой гуманитарной блокады Газа и обеспечение безопасного и беспрепятственного доступа к нуждающимся. К этому мы последовательно призывали с самого начала обострения палестино-израильского конфликта 7 октября 2023 года, и как показали результаты сегодняшнего голосования, это та основа разрешения кризиса вокруг Газа, под которой сегодня готова подписаться подавляющая часть международного сообщества. К сожалению, сегодня в ходе 10-тысячного заседания СБ мы стали свидетелями очередного 7-го по счету вето США, вновь заблокировавших принятие решения, которое помогло бы остановить кровопролитие. В этих цифрах есть трагический символизм. Пока в Вашингтоне не изменится призма восприятия кризиса в Газе, пока многосторонняя дипломатия в ООН будет восприниматься там как преграда, а не как критически важный инструмент, никаких прорывов по БВУ не произойдет. СБ ООН так и будет оставаться свидетелем катастрофы, парализованной не какими-то своими структурными проблемами, а по воле, точнее из-за ее отсутствия, одной единственной делегации. Призываем наших американских коллег осознать, что декларируемая ими тихая дипломатия на земле, как они говорят, подрывается не здравыми голосами мирового сообщества, в том числе в этих стенах, а конкретными действиями израильского союзника, что наглядно подтвердила агрессивная вылазка Западного Иерусалима против суверенного Катара как одного из
بحقيقة أن ما أعلن عنه الدبلوماسية الهادئة على الأرض تلك التي تحدثوا عنها لا تقود الأصوات السلمية في المجتمع الدولي بما ذلك في هذه القاعة، ولكنها تقود بالتحركات الملموسة التي يقوم بها الحليف الإسرائيلي لها، وهذا ما تأكد بالهجوم العدواني على
And this what has been confirmed by the Israeli attack on Qatar, one of the main mediators for negotiations and for peace in the region. That was a slap to the idea of peace in the region, and it killed the credibility, any credibility that Israel wants to reach a deal, a peace deal. Our colleagues in the United States who say that it is Hamas who is obstructing the ceasefire, this is nonsense. It is Israel that obstructing peace. Israel's actions against Qatar attack on Qatar and its actions in Gaza are the ones obstructing peace. We've heard many peoples around the world protesting against the Israeli atrocities in Gaza. This call must not fall on deaf ears. It is extremely important to resume the conference aimed at solving the crisis and the conflict in the Middle East this upcoming week, and to continue to draft the path for the solution, for the two-state solution that has no that's the only way forward in the region. Now, the international community must continue to work to try and reach a solution to this catastrophic conflict, and must find a way to stop the United States from using its veto. This is unacceptable. The United States must also review its decision not to grant Palestinians, members of the Palestinian Authority, visas to attend the UN General Assembly meetings. We will not surrender. We have to continue to work. We will continue to express our firm stance regarding this issue, and we hope that the other members of the Council would also continue to work with us on a permanent settlement to the Israeli-Palestinian struggle, and the only way forward, again, is the two-state solution. We call on the other wise members here with us in the Council, and we are confident that the next time we will find voting reaching 15-0. Panama wants to wants to commend the efforts of the members of the Security Council here, despite their differences. We commend the efforts of Denmark as a coordinator for these complex negotiations between Council members. We also want to thank all delegations that supported this draft resolution. The draft resolution that calls for supporting humanity imminently, and the principles of the UN Charter and the dignity of mankind.
يعزز الاستخدام حق النقد ولكنه حث على اتخاذ إجراء لا يمكن تأجيله.
We don't like the fact that veto was used here because this is a very critical situation. The resolution called for a halt of hostilities and the killing of civilians, and also called for the release of all hostages, the unconditional release and immediate release of all hostages, and also it called on lifting all restrictions on aid trickling into the Gaza Strip. The starvation has been used as a weapon, and we must keep people in Gaza alive, those suffering from famine. Once again, this council has been paralyzed, not because there are no suggestions or because there is no will. In June of 2024, this same council adopted the resolution 2735 that called for an end of all hostilities, the release of all hostages gradually, and the release of all the forces and the reconstruction of Gaza. And at the beginning of this year, Israel and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire, according to resolution 2735. And this proves that the resolutions adopted by this council does not derail mediation efforts, but rather it supports efforts to solve the conflict.